Hi, I'm Karole Nicholson, and welcome to Your Community VNA. Today I am very pleased and honored to have a guest with us who spoke at our annual meeting. Her name is Kendra Hart. I want to welcome Kendra.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming over. And you know, when Kendra spoke, she spoke about her experience as a caregiver for her mom who has Alzheimer's disease. And she invited her mom to come and live in her home for a little over 2 years. And I think it was a very special journey for both of you. Mm-hmm. And I just, I thought that maybe we could all appreciate what we have and also know that it's not easy, but there's some other people that have gone through things that could help some folks that are out there kind of dealing with things. Yep. So just a little history, probably. Just tell me about, like, first of all, do you have a family? Tell us about that.
I do. I have a family. I have a husband. Mm-hmm. I have 2 children, a son 15 and a daughter 13, and I have a wonderful dog.
Okay.
So, and a full-time job. I'm a teacher.
That's right. And your husband's, of course, working full-time.
Yes.
Kids have active lives.
They do. My son is into sports, basketball, football. My daughter's into volleyball and basketball and music.
So at the time when you decided, and we're going to go back a little bit, we've been talking a little bit on set, but your mother was offset. Your mother was living independently at her home.
Yes.
In Uxbridge, Mass.
Right.
And sort of what made you feel like this might be the time? What went on there?
There were a lot of signs. She really was not caring for herself as well. I noticed a lot of stains on her clothes. I would make her meals and go see her once a week and bring my little goodie bag. I felt like the roles had reversed, you know, mm-hmm. and bring my goodie bag, and I found more and more food was stocking up in the freezer. She wasn't eating it. She actually broke a tooth once when she tried to eat something that was frozen. So then I realized she wasn't using the microwave, and I opened the microwave and it's full of plastic bags. You know, then really paranoia. She said someone was knocking on her door at 3 o'clock in the morning. They're trying to get her out of her house. You know, she's scared. Very sad. It's to the point where really it was my husband who said, we need to go get her. And it's time.
So, you know, when you have something like that happening right then and there, it's a really big step to go from that. And I'm sure you were anticipating it, because the other thing is, we didn't point out, your mother doesn't live in the same town. She didn't live in the same town. You were like 45 minutes away?
Good 45 minutes, yeah.
Okay, so that wasn't easy to always be there just all the time. And you had to kind of rely on the fact that, were there people looking out for her, like in her community?
She was very, very lucky. She had wonderful neighbors. She had a young couple across the street that were very good to her. She had a couple right next door that were good to her. The woman would come in and have tea with her. The problem was, though, she started to get dependent on the couple across the street. So then what really sent up a huge red flag is that twice during the night she tried to walk over to their house. Oh. She couldn't, you know, use her cell phone correctly. And so then she panicked, and she went out in the winter, and once was during a rainstorm. So then you start to realize that the common sense factor is going.
Right. Yeah. And so she was living in her own home. It was an independent home, wasn't an apartment or anything like that.
Home that my father built. Oh. So there was a strong attachment that way. Yeah.
Sure. And like, we're going to go back a little bit earlier, because we talked about this. Your dad had already passed.
Right.
How long
He passed
before?
in 2005.
Okay. So did you see changes right away after that, or did it take some time?
I don't think it's, you know, hindsight is great. And when my husband and I look back, we say, you know, oh my gosh, the signs were there. But so many times you do, and I think we still tend to, as a society, say, oh, it's just old age, it's just old age. And then with my dad dying, and everybody thought my father was going to outlive my mother, and, you know, but yeah, this, you know, getting into, she had 3 car accidents, which later on she said she never had a car accident, but she had 3 car accidents. So then we convinced her to not drive anymore. So
how was that? Was that something she accepted?
We were very lucky in a way. My husband was in a car accident where his car ended up getting totaled. Wow. So I asked her if she would please loan her car to my husband. Wow. which she at that point was not driving, so she did. But then for like months later, she said that she helped out my husband, who was a bad driver, because he got into a car accident. She had never gotten into a car accident. My husband can show you all the.
What a character she is!
Oh, they're amazing. They're, you know, it's truly, yes.
And this was this like the mom that you knew growing up, or was she kind of a little shifty? Or
I'm laughing to myself because my husband and I, my brother and his wife, we all say she actually was nicer with dementia. And that sounds sort of cruel, but she was always just a very old-fashioned New England, prim and proper person, you know, grew up depression baby type of thing. And you know, there were times when she didn't think she was sarcastic, but there were times when she was sort of cold-heartedly cruel. And with the dementia, she became sweet. Very sweet. Yeah. And so, you know, in some ways it was sort of funny. You know, my husband would laugh because he would say, she likes me now better than she ever did. And my sister-in-law the same thing. She's like, who is this woman?
But you know, I have heard that. Sometimes people really can change.
And it can go the other way.
It can, exactly. Yes. They can have been very kind and all of a sudden,
it can go the other way.
There's just, and I think this is the interesting thing about Alzheimer's dementia. There are no set patterns. Not everyone is going to do everything at the same way. And you know, sometimes when people attend a conference and they start talking about potential behaviors, and you're thinking, oh, I can't believe that. Well, it might not happen to your loved one.
Exactly. We have a friend, his mother was just diagnosed, and he was over our house before my mother left, and he saw the way she was acting, and he had this almost look of horror, and he's like, is this what it's going to be? Is this what it's going to be like? You know, as she paced back and forth and was looking for things, and I said, maybe yes, maybe no, Bob. You know, I said, there's no set. I said, you know, my experience may not be yours. There are some commonalities, but it's not going to be the same story. Exactly.
So you prepared sort of, like how much time did it take you when you started to talk with your husband and family about it, and when she came to live with you? About what time, what's the time frame?
Probably about 6 months where we were seriously talking about what we were going to do. Though conversations went before that, because the house that we live in now, we've lived in for just over 3 years, and we moved for a couple reasons, but one being also that we thought eventually she would come to live with us.
Okay, so you
yeah.
And you are 2 children in the family?
Yes.
Okay, so you have a brother?
I have a brother.
Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit more about him because he's playing a pretty substantial role in this right now too. But so you kind of saw it coming, and then she came. So even with your family, was it one of those things that, I don't know what it's going to be like, but we're going to just give it our best shot?
Yeah, pretty much. And you know, we said, you know, we asked the kids, are you okay with this? And they were. You have to remember too, this was a woman who helped raise my children. When I was working, she part-time, you know, helped to raise my kids, and they had a very strong bond, an extremely strong bond. You know, and I remember the things that she used to do with them, and it's, you know, just incredible. And so yeah, they were good with it. And you know, my husband is a very kind, caring person. He's also in education, and you know, so we were all on board. I'm not saying that prepares you for it, but we were at least all on board.
Right, because you don't really know to prepare for it. I mean, and that's why I asked you to be our guest, because I think sometimes someone else's experience at least gets you thinking that, wow, it's not always going to be anything you can just write down and determine and write a book on or anything.
And it's not something that everybody can do.
No.
And they have to be willing, you know, because I have said that to other people, you know, you have to know it's not something that everybody can do.
No. And it is not just you, it's your husband, your children, your whole family that has to embrace it. So did she have her own room, or?
Yes. Actually, initially when we bought the house, the downstairs had sort of a little in-law place, and we thought that she would stay down there. When she moved in with us, we realized very quickly that was not going to work, because she would always be looking for us and very nervous, and there was an outdoor, a door to the outside, so we didn't want her to wander. So we moved her to an upstairs bedroom, and my son moved down to what he calls the man cave.
Okay. He was kind of okay with that.
Oh, yeah, he definitely was. Yeah, so the rearranging was okay. That all worked fine. She has a bedroom on the first floor, and she had a full bathroom right across from her bedroom.
That was a beautiful, I don't know, just the system, whatever scene that you could create for her, that environment was exactly what someone would think this, if anything was going to work, that would probably work.
Right.
So 2 years and 2 months later.
Right.
So, and that's what you talked about at the annual meeting, and I think sometimes people were just thinking like, so kind of how did that go? What changes did you see in your mom over that time? Yeah, any surprises, kind of?
We saw a decline when she first came for about 6 months to a year, and then she pretty much sort of leveled off for a while. And it's hard because you see someone who was so independent and so, in control and so bright, and she couldn't find the bathroom that was right across from her room. Couldn't cut her own food, literally didn't know what to do with it. So you had to cut things up for her, and yet you find yourself, you don't want to cross the line of treating them like a child, because even though they are okay with that, you're not okay with that. So difficult situations like that you have to sort of adjust to and get used to, and it has to become sort of your norm more than it is her norm, because it already is her norm.
Right. It's just happening in front of you.
Right. It's happening, and she's not realizing that it's happening.
Right.
And there would be times when she would say, I think it's time for me to go home. And I'd say, Mom, I don't think you can live on your own anymore. Really? Really? Do you really think so? I'm like, I don't think so. Well, why? I said, well, because, you weren't really taking care of yourself. I wasn't? What are you talking? And sometimes we'd get angry. Sometimes we'd be very surprised. Can't remember that person.
Of course. Right. And you just kind of like when you hear it, you're going like, yeah, that certainly could be. And we talked about this where your mom had been to regular doctor's appointments and things like that. Yep. So, took care of her physical self. Your father had done the same thing.
Actually, very good shape physically.
Good oh, yeah?
She takes a low blood pressure pill, that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she has really good health.
Yeah.
Probably will maintain that for quite some time.
Yeah.
And so when she went to the doctors, and this is something that we find when we talk with people, sometimes when people go to the doctors, they really can prepare for that appointment so well. Because were you kind of surprised that there were no diagnoses?
I was because I thought, because they kept saying, oh, it's just old age and things are happening, and they would check her vitamin D and they would check her iron, and things like that, and that was all good and well, but as I took her to more and more appointments, because then I did take on that role of taking her to the appointments, I realized when she was prepping herself, she would, it was starting to tell you about how she'd say, I'm going to have to write a check, so what's the date today? And I get there, and the first question the doctor would ask is, what's today's date? And I'm like, that little rascal, and she
aced
knew
it,
the questions that were coming.
Right,
yeah.
right.
And when he asked her questions like, are you cooking for yourself? Oh, yes. I cook all my own meals. Are you doing your own laundry? Oh, I've always done my own. She would have all the answers, and I would be sitting there going, no, none of those things. And at that point, I would say to my husband, I don't know if it's her pride that's in the way, because she was always, she never went to the doctors unless she absolutely had to, one of that generation. Or if she really believed she was doing those things. And she very well could
and
have.
who are we to ask that question?
Right,
but
exactly.
Yeah, she really rose to the occasion. So it was hard to get some kind of treatment early on, if that was potentially the case.
And I wish I had taken her to a real specialized geriatric doctor, regardless of whether she had dementia or not, just at a certain age. I just wish, I actually, when I had to get a new doctor, I looked, and she specializes in geriatrics.
Oh,
and
yeah,
like,
why not?
Really? Though she'll probably retire before I need her. That's the sad part.
But she'll move,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It is interesting, because you said your mother's 86.
She is.
Now. And so, that's that time, too, when you kind of say, yes, there are going to be some changes. And, some of us that have been there with our parents, sometimes it is maybe severe memory loss, maybe memory loss. It's going to come and go. But this was starting to be the paranoia.
Memory loss is, you forget where you put your keys, but you can pause and you can think through it. It's not being hungry and saying, okay, and going into the freezer and eating a frozen hamburger and breaking a tooth, and then not understanding why that didn't work.
Yes.
Those types, or putting, the milk in a cabinet, not the refrigerator. Those are not, the regular memory loss things.
So she came to live with you, And were you off for the summer? Was it a time of year when you were?
We actually brought her to our house for Mother's Day and told her she was going to stay with us.
Okay.
So then I went back and forth a few times and got clothes and went through things and brought some personal things that I thought would make her comfortable. But yeah.
So now you have this full day.
Right.
You have children, they got to go places. Now all of a sudden, you are like being responsible for someone. Tell me, what was that like?
You often have the feeling that you're never good enough in any direction. You never feel like you're a good enough wife because you don't get to go out on a date. You're not a good enough mom because you miss the games. You're not a good enough daughter because you're not sitting down and talking to her, and that's probably what would calm her down the most, because you have to fix dinner and help with homework and things like that. So that's the downsides. You know, those are the really tough things that are so hard, and you're tired a lot, you know, because it's an exhausting day. The good things is when you have those moments when you can sit down with each and every, and you see times when you just laugh. And it's not that you're laughing at things that she does, you're just laughing. You know, there were just times when you have to laugh, because if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. Yeah. Absolutely. So, you know, and there were times when she was still genuinely funny, and she was, you know, a pleasure to have in the house, and we would all laugh together, and that was good. And there were times when you saw, like I saw my daughter, we would play cards, and she loves to play this. She loves to play Uno, and she loves to play eights and things like that. And she would get a different deck of cards for Nanny and just give Nanny, like, you know, 7 cards. And Nanny never played the game, but she had her cards, type of thing. Yeah. You know, so those types of things.
Yeah. And so, you know, was it that you just saw it in front of your very eyes, the progression of it getting worse?
You do, yeah. Sadly, you see that, you know, my mother became a hummer when she got nervous, or when she was not aware of who it was around her. She would hum, and she also, there were times when she would look at me and I'd say, "Do you know who I am?" And she'd say, "You're my mother." And I'd say, "No." I said, "But I am related to you. You're my sister?" And I said, "No, I'm Kendra." "Oh." And I could see that she still didn't know the connection. And "I'm your daughter." "You are? Well, you must make your mother very proud." Oh, you know, so there was, you know,
I know.
there was that connection, but there wasn't,
type
of thing. Yeah. As time went on, and then there were other days that she knew who I was.
So you didn't know what you were going to wake up to many days. Now, to sort of help you with that, because you were working, your children were going to school, your husband's working.
Right.
I think at some point, that's how we get to know you, is that Adult Day Health, and it wasn't our Adult Day Health right off the bat, I understand. She was at a social.
She was at Prime Time in Dighton, which was wonderful.
Right.
And like, they probably kept her about 3 months longer than they should have, maybe even 6 months. They were wonderful with her, but they did not have the staff
and the capabilities
to care for someone with the needs that she needed.
Because you had to be like making sure you were.
She needed help to find the bathroom, even though she had been there, you know, over a year. You know, she needed to have constant reassurance of, you know, the van is coming. I'm going to get on the van. I'm going to go home. Yeah.
She was okay with getting up in the morning and going somewhere, though.
She always thought she was going to school, and she loved school.
Oh.
So yeah, she was going to school.
Now, you're a teacher, your husband's in the same career. Did she work outside the home when she was?
She worked at the old Draper Corporation in
oh, I know that.
in Mendon.
Yes.
Yep, in Hopedale, actually.
Yeah.
Yep. She worked there as a secretary until she had children.
Okay. So she was never a teacher.
No,
but she
was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
But she was a person who worked very hard in school, and you know, you look back and things connect. She worked very hard in school, and there were 3 children in her family, and they could only afford to send one, so the son went.
Oh, okay.
And was a person who college was very important. I mean, there was never a question my brother and I were going to go to college, and it was very important. So school was always very important to her. So yeah.
And that happens, I think, when we look at the Adult Day Health Centers, people either think they're volunteering, or they're going to work, or they're going to school.
Yep.
And I think it gives them purpose. They get up, it becomes a routine.
Right.
So that worked out with your routine. And it must have been quite a bit of work to get her up, get her dressed, get her going. On the van by, who knows, it was pretty early.
7.
By 7, okay. And she would stay the full day at the Adult Day Health.
She would stay, I would leave school at 3:30, and I would pick her up in the afternoons at 4. because to go from Norton to the industrial park in Taunton was just a hop, skip, and a jump.
Okay,
So I
because
picked her up.
ultimately she left the social daycare. And I might just let the audience know that, of course, Community VNA has 3 adult day health centers,
Right.
One of them in Taunton, one of them in Mansfield, and one of them in Norwood. And your mother attended our Harmony
yes.
Adult Day Health Center. And when she was able to go from there, and I'm sure it even happened when she was at Prime Time, which is the social daycare, was that kind of a weight that you kind of was lifted from you to not have to worry about what's going to happen during the day?
Yes, because we had looked into having people come into the home. It's very expensive. When we tried it one time, and it's nothing against those programs, we tried it one time, and for some reason, though they sent someone who was maybe 20.
Oh, yeah.
And she followed my mother constantly, and for some reason that drove my mother insane.
Well,
you would think she would have loved the company, but she didn't.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work.
Yeah.
In fact, she said to us, if this is what it's going to be like, I have to go home.
Well, you know, sometimes you do find when a person with dementia attends adult day health, there's something magical that happens, that they do make friends in a way that neither of us will ever know. Their comfort level, their communication with other folks, amazing.
Right.
If you witnessed it, and I'm sure you did, where you go, sometimes it's not a lot of words, and to us it may seem like, I don't know what's going on there,
Right.
but they are connected.
Right. And they all seem to find their niche.
They do.
It's
and they
like
find
a family.
Their group.
They all
Yes.
like, you know, some go over here to watch a program, some come over here and do some arts and crafts, and some sit and chat, and then they'll rotate, and they find their niche. It's wonderful. And there's people who are sort of gently guiding them when needed.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful.
Yeah,
It's
I have observed that, and I'm thinking, you know, a lot of times it's not that everyone with dementia is sitting together and put in one, and that's the nice thing about it. They interface with all sorts of folks with backgrounds. And you know, sometimes there are people there that do not have any dementia at all. They got a physical ailment, but they're watching out for, they're trying to help a person along. And I think coming at the end of the day, they've had a richer experience than they could ever have with a one-on-one. Sorry.
Whenever I picked her up, she was always very happy, very happy.
Yeah, I know. You said that, and you talked about that. Now, did you feel like having, you know, there's a nurse, there's a social worker, were there times when you bounced things off of them and had conversations?
That was the nice thing about Harmony versus Primetime, and again, Primetime didn't have that need, but it was very nice to know that there was a nurse there, that there was the different social workers, and they would talk to me, you know, oh, today this, or, you know, do you have any questions? And it was wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you had a day when you're just going like, I don't know what to do anymore, you know, at least just talking to someone that might understand it.
And laughing is
laughing. You talk about laughing and words with friends. Your little spot where you could go and just.
Well, yes, because you know my friends at school who I teach with, they all, you know, they have varying degrees of signs that it may be happening in their lives with their parents. It may or may not. And so, you know, we have to stay active. You know, we have to keep teaching. We have to play words with friends.
Yes. We have to eat good food. We have to exercise.
We have to exercise.
We have to keep moving. We have to dance. We have to do all.
Or we have to drink wine.
Whatever. Right. That red wine, there's a certain amount of it.
And, you know, I did say, though, it was funny because then I had read the book Still Alice, and then when I saw the movie, which it's not in the book, and the first scene opens and she's playing Words with Friends. And
I know you said that.
Oh, my gosh. I'm texting them all. She's playing Words with Friends.
I think this is really scary.
We're lost.
Yeah. But I do think that it comes with a built-in support system to a certain degree, where you just feel like, well, I'm not in this alone, but I'm sure there's many times you felt like the weight is here.
Yep.
And actually, it did get to be a whole lot because you needed to look at other alternatives.
It did. And around February, I saw it. I knew it was affecting me, but I started affecting my husband and his health. I started affecting my children and their relationship, and that's probably what hurt the most. I saw them, you know, getting embarrassed now, you know, being a little bit angry that I couldn't go to their games. Though I never was saying anything, just, you know, if I would say to my son, you know, I'm sorry I couldn't be at your game, he's like, yeah, it's okay. But I knew it wasn't okay, you know, and it's not okay. So I said to my brother, who lives in Hawaii, that, you know, either, and he had been resistant to that point, but either he was going to have to take a turn, or I was going to have to start to look. I wasn't planning on doing it soon, but I was going to start to look for some place for her to be, to live outside of the home.
So?
He had a change of heart. I hope with a little nudge from God. I'm not sure, but he had a change of heart, and he was willing to take her. And so we agreed that I would take her in June because he had a child who had to take some tests. They homeschool and had to take some tests, and she was preparing for. They're 18 and 17, their children. They're both retired from the military. And so at the end of the school year, I brought her to live in
Hawaii.
Yeah.
Well, she certainly is living in a nice place.
It is nice. It's warm. You know, she's going to always think it's summer because I brought her there in the summer. She's going to always think it's summer. She is on one level. She goes to still goes to a daycare center now Monday through Saturday, right down the street. They can walk to it. They can walk to church. So it's all.
So I know we talked a little bit about your brother, and it's kind of a big adjustment because now she's a little later in the disease, and you know, it's going to change, and just the adjustment of her going to live in a really different environment had to be huge for her.
Not really.
Not really. She's adjusted.
You know, the plane ride was interesting.
Yeah, huh?
She did fine going from here to Atlanta, no problem at all. And I did book first class because I wanted to make her as comfortable as possible, and from Atlanta to Hawaii was going to be 8 hours. Yeah. And I did book the shortest flight I possibly could. And I did, when we got on the plane from Atlanta to go to Hawaii, I have to admit, I gave her a Benadryl because I was hoping she would sleep.
You're coming clean now.
I am coming clean. But because I had to get up at 3:30 in the morning. And so I knew she was going to be tired. Sure. And I was really hoping she was going to be able to sleep. And we were on a Delta flight that had those like pods, so she literally could lay down flat, except she wasn't tired. She was a little bit upset. She kept saying, "Tell them to turn this taxi around. I'm going home." And I said, "We're on a plane." And so she goes, "If you say so." So she's very angry at me. And then she kept wanting to once we got the flight up into the air, she kept wanting to, I said, "Okay, now we're going to take a little nap." "Oh, here's the problem." And then what's so interesting, it's almost an interesting disease to study. If I was, you know, if my children were going to go into the medical field, I would say go into this because it's fascinating in some ways. I said to her, "Okay, we're going to take a little nap." "Okay." And look, you have your own quilt here and a pillow. "Oh, how nice." So you think she's going to be happy as a clam. I put her completely flat. I go to sit down. I look over. She literally has her leg in the air trying to escape from the pod. God. And I said, yeah. She did fall asleep eventually. But,
oh, God. And, you know, I can't believe we're running out of time already. And there's all these things that I wanted to still ask you. I guess I wanted to say, you know, if you had to do it all over. But I guess we won't have time to hear I could ask the question. But the fact that you did it, and I guess, you know, it meant to you.
I would have taken her into the home, definitely. That I would never have changed. It was just what I had to do.
Yeah. And you did it with grace, and I think that, I'm sure in a way your life is richer for it, and people will benefit because you will tell your story, your children will tell their story, and we'll help.
And my story is no worse than anyone else's. You know, my shoes aren't heavier. They're just different shoes.
That's right. Kendra, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you all for spending the time with us, and we'll see you next time.